Welcome to another episode of Making Sense, a conversation about real life. Always a pleasure to have you with us, Dr. Hakan.
Hi Nadia, how are you?
I'm good. How are you doing?
Very well.
Just to set a little bit of context, in our last discussion, we very briefly touched upon the fundamentals that we need to look at and what are the four solutions to address those fundamentals.
We can't drum it enough that that's what we want to do. We don't want to look at what the symptoms are or what things, we are looking at in terms of consequences. Fundamentals of the economy are what we want to correct. As we correct the fundamentals, the consequences will become better.
So let's unpack these fundamentals one after another. Let's take agriculture. So, since childhood, we've always heard that we're an agriculture economy. All kinds of crops are grown in Pakistan. When I remember when I was a child, and even now when we used to drive from Lahore to Islamabad or down south, you'd see these beautiful fertile fields, rice growing, sugarcane, and all these things. But now of late, what we started to hear and also experience is the price hike, shortage of food, hearing things like, Pakistan will become a food insecure country. What is that all about?
So these are the repercussions you're seeing of where our agriculture stands today. So you mentioned food bill. Our import food bill was $10 billion in FY21. Huge, right? The price hike, everyone goes through. 37% of a country's households, what you were talking about, are food insecure. 40% stunting in the country. 30% of children under the age of 5 are underweight. And lastly, with a growing population of 2.4%, these are all the consequences of how the agriculture has behaved over the last several years.
Alarming statistics. Some of the numbers that you just posted.
They're really worrisome, right? If you think about them, these are some serious numbers.
Yeah, but so these are the consequences of something wrong somewhere.
Absolutely.
So what is that?
As you and I were talking earlier, productivity.
Yes.
Productivity is something which is across the board an issue in the country, because we've never thought about it like that productivity increases is what the economy should be all about, right? So agriculture productivity, our main crops like wheat, cotton, maize, sugar, rice, we are less than 50% of the world's best. Our Sahiwal cow, about 6-7 liters
and
per
I believe
day.
The Australians are the best in this.
27 liters. I think I've worked in the right country. I think that's something that I've learned there. Productivity was everything. Look at how they are. Then you look at the other an area of interest to you, like you have to tell us about it. When we have the crops and when we deliver the crops, all the supply chain.
The supply chain is a huge issue. Not just in terms of farm to market access, but otherwise in terms of no cold chains being available, lots of wastage. I think the number is something like 30%, 35%. It varies. Then again, what you can do with utilizing this wasted food through going into dehydration and value addition activities, for instance.
Absolutely.
So those are some of the things that I think that's what we really need to look into.
The water wastage and the water capacity to store. Our water capacity to store is about 10%. Global average 40%. There are estimates of $20 to $25 billion of money that could, that could be put into productive use if we were to save this water. Then our canal intake. We almost get half of what we bring into the canal at the end.
And the rest is wasted.
The rest is wasted. Seepage and other issues that we will talk about. Financing issues. Serious financing issues, right? These are small farmers, scattered. Financing issues are, and then they get financing from what, the popular word RPs at a very high rate. So markets have gone missing. Then the role of the government. I mean, the government setting up wheat price, the government setting up sugar prices.
But that's historically been the trend. I mean, that's what's been happening since times immemorial in terms of the government setting these price.
Right. So market creation has been an issue, and market creation is something we will, drill as much as we can, because we want the markets to work so that there is competition, there is efficiency, and you get the best price, and we become as producers the most efficient that we can be. So think about it. And then the import tariff, the import regimes, again, a lot of government intervention. And you've just seen what has happened. Sometimes you are importing, sometimes you are exporting, and then the subsidy issues. So the reason I'm against this is because then the social capital of the government, the political capital of the government, whatever government it is, and then the whole capacity of the government goes into doing these kinds of things, when they should be thinking about setting these things right.
That's having a long-term perspective as opposed to price setting.
Absolutely.
As to address these price hike issues.
I mean,
it affects everybody. And the price hike, your household, my household, everybody around us.
Yeah. So I mean, this is what structural issues of the sector are.
I think one thing that you also mentioned, value addition in our, whether we're talking about horticulture produce or even, your cash crops. You look at dates being processed, filled with chocolate. You go to any of these, Middle Eastern countries, you'd get a box of dates, chocolate covered dates, and then so many other things. That's an area where I think we need to also look into.
See, the other thing is that, I mean, many people would say this has been happening, that has been happening. The scale and quality of work that is required to get this going is enormous and must be done. And it's not that we don't have some frameworks to do it. But we had a national food security policy in 2018. Lots of people don't even know that we had a policy like that. We did a very good study on rice, how to do clusters. And again, it's gone into those shelves where we have to dust it and find it.
Implementation of the identified issues is perhaps one of our biggest challenges. So let's get down to what needs to be done.
I think you should start.
You need to give me and our viewers your 5-step approach, or 6-step if you want to, or even a 3-step approach as to address these issues.
I think first is the one what you talked about. I mean, food processing. Get some 3 big guys. You have all these institutions set up to approach them. Get a Dell or get a Heinz or get a Kraft, and create some manufacturing units to process food and market them abroad. And that's the first thing that one should do.
So that's value addition.
That's value addition. Then curtailing of wastages is about how many cold houses you want to set up, how many pack houses you want to set up, how many refrigerator container yards you want to have, how many testing labs you want to have, what facilities you want to have at the port. Make a thing, get them going in the next 3 years. Lay down a plan and do it.
So that's the logistics part of it. So we have value addition and then logistics.
And logistics has a lot of things that you can also do.
Right.
The shipping companies need an upgradation.
Absolutely, warehousing facilities,
Right. So then you need to develop e-mandis. Again, I would keep talking about markets all the time. You need to have e-mandis developed. You need to upgrade many districts. You want to set up models so that people can come and see. You've got to set up some examples. So that's something to do. Compliance to international standards. So these are the basic things you need to put down there. Revamping canal efficiency. I've been hearing about it since I was a kid. It's not, been grown up much like you have. So that's something you need to devote a big part of your ADP in this and the annual development programs and get this going. I mean, there is no.
So provinces have to take a lead in this.
Absolutely, and I really feel sad about something. Pakistan did very well when we had the Green Revolution many decades ago. I think we missed on the Gene Revolution. I've been part of that government. Probably, part of the blame comes with us where we didn't take this so seriously as well. And you've heard about BT cotton, and it's been ages. And look, our cotton has gone from 14 million bales to 7-8 million bales, and look at what our neighbors have done. But we should not miss on the precision agriculture revolution that is happening in the world. And that's the responsibility of the, PARCs, the NARCs, the universities. And that's the integration they should be doing. They should take lead in this. And we cannot miss this kind of a thing as we move forward. Then, of course, import substitution. I mean, if we don't do import substitution, edible oil is always going to be very expensive.
Yes.
So that's something we need. And that's where a lot of research is required. And that's something, everything doesn't have a simple solution.
Right.
But those are things which don't have a simple solution. And we really need to think about those solutions. And then the cropping patterns. I mean, we seriously need to have some studies. Which are the high yielding crops that we want to have?
Yeah.
Which are the crops which will be there when, our water security is threatened? How do we develop these cropping patterns? So that requires serious work. I'm sure I am not at least aware of, but somewhere in the Pakistan Agriculture Research Council, that booklet is also lying. So, we need to take it up and take it forward. I've always been saying that, development expenditure really needs a rethink.
Yeah.
Here, the development expenditure should have a rethink where we should spend as much as we can. We have small farmers, we have disintegrated farming. So here the money should be put. And then finance should also get all the financing issues sorted out. Every time I remember whenever the budget came, we would say against the passbook, you can borrow this much, now you can borrow that much.
Yeah.
I think we have to go past that stage. And I'm hoping that the new kind of, the small tech revolution that is taking place, you can talk about that at the end, will also help in all these kinds of things.
Certainly. I think you've identified some, very, very specific areas that we need to look at and how we can get there. From what I understand is if we want to talk about a change or growth in the agriculture sector, until and unless these fundamentals are addressed,
the structural shift we need to make, and we need to have a concentrated small team and go with it. I think our planning commission should be the hub which takes lead in this, and then all the other.
Right, we already have the institutional infrastructure in place. It's just that sitting down together and putting, translating whatever we have in terms of the reports, the books, whatever research has gone into practical implementation.
And I'm sure there's a lot of research. I've put forward 3 researches in front of you, done by the government. Again, we will always say the local doctors will do the local search.
So we need to do our own heavy lifting, as you like to say.
Absolutely.
Okay. Thank you for being with us, Dr. Khakan.
Pleasure, Nadia.